Welcome, everybody, to the very first episode of Last Call at McLaren'S, the How I Met Your Mother podcast. I am Josh Rayner. I run a site called Merc with a Movie Blog, as well as DC Comics News. I love movies. I love TV. I'm here to talk about this amazing show with my best friend, my brother, John. How you doing, John?
I am excellent. My name is John Made. I'm a boring motherfucker who loves television, movies, and everything that goes in between there. I mean, you can find me not doing as much as Josh does, but I'm pretty active some places.
Fair enough. All right. So as you guys can see right down at the bottom, we're going to start right off with episode number 1 from season 1, entitled Pilot.
That's right. We're going to talk about the show that revolves around 5 people living in Manhattan, all finding a way to deal with AIDS in the turn of the century.
I think you're thinking of Rent, sir.
Oh, shit. I always get those two mixed up.
I hope you watched this episode in preparation and didn't just watch Rent for the 17th time.
17th. You're way on that. I mean, 17th. Yeah, that's about right.
All right. So the way I'm going to start things off every episode, going to, tell a couple of facts about the episode, and then we'll dive in. So season 1, episode 1, Pilot, aired on September 19th, 2005. It's been a while. It's been now almost 16 years since this show launched. This episode was written by Carter Bays and Craig Thomas. They're the showrunners. They created the show. And it was directed by Pamela Fryman. This episode, I'll give a little short synopsis before we dive into the actual events of the episode. Future Ted begins telling his 2 kids the story of how he met their mother. He introduces us, I should say, to his friends Barney, Lily, Marshall, and Robin, telling his kids how Lily and Marshall got engaged and how he met their Aunt Robin. But they don't realize that until the end. So, John, I wanted to ask you, how did you come across How I Met Your Mother in the first place? Do you remember?
Honestly, I think I came across How I Met Your Mother because of you. I think you were watching it, and it had already been around for a few seasons. And I think you were talking it up, and I was like, eh. And then
which happens a lot.
I gave it a run in... I think I started watching it somewhere in like 2008, 2009, and then just caught myself up and continued on with the show from there on.
I mean, I've done that with a lot of shows. You've done that for me. You've got me hooked on certain shows that same way. But
that's true.
Yeah, for me, I watched it right from the beginning. I remember hearing about this new show with Allison Hannigan. I was a big fan of Buffy. So, Allison Hannigan being Willow in that, I was like, ooh, I'll totally check out a new show with her. And, this was right around that time that I believe Friends ended that same year. So, it had that, it was kind of taken over for that. I watched Friends, not like religiously, but, somewhat regularly. So it kind of filled that spot. And I'll be honest, in my opinion, it's much better. And I'm sure the internet is going to light me on fire for that. But I don't care because I believe this show's way better than it. So.
Well, I mean, if you watched Friends and you watch How I Met Your Mother, there are people who, like you said, they draw the line. One is always better than the other. I will not pivot people's, opinion either way.
Fair enough, John. Fair enough.
But I will say, not being on a break with this show. See what I'm doing there? I'm fucking.
Oh yeah, you are.
I was always more of a fan of How I Met Your Mother. I resonated with Ted's character so much throughout this show, and this show really helped me redefine who I was as a person in the dating scene.
Yeah. All right, so let's jump into to the episode Pilot.
Yes.
All right. So the episode begins in the year 2030. With future Ted sitting his kids down to tell them the story of how he met their mother. Then he jumps back 25 years to 2005. I mean, I'll be honest, as I rewatched this right away, it made me wonder how I didn't realize the fate of the mother.
Yes.
Because why is he telling this story by himself? You know what I mean? Like, this is the kind of thing that, the mom and dad would sit down, they'd tell this story together, and they'd have like fun banter back and forth as they're remembering things differently. Why is he telling this story without her? So, like, I don't know how it wasn't something that I thought of back then, or even the many times that I've watched it since, to be honest with you.
It's like I was telling you, though, right before we started recording, too. It's really funny because if you don't think about that, and then you really think about the series in general, if you took the pilot episode and then take footage from, like, where he met Tracy on, and you edited that stuff properly, you could run the first episode with the rest of that footage, make probably about a feature-length movie, and cut out most of the rest of the series, and it would still make perfect sense.
Yeah, it would. You'd miss out on a whole lot. You'd miss out on a whole lot of fun, but yes, you definitely could.
I mean, you would be missing out on fun, but there are literally stories that he tells throughout the show that a couple times he makes reference to. I don't even know why I'm telling you this story. It has nothing to do with How I Met Your Mother.
You want to know what I love about that? It's very realistic to like an older guy just kind of reminiscing about his past, where he's just going on tangents about anything. So like I kind of like it's true. Yeah, you definitely do that. I kind of like the almost realism of that, whether they meant to do that or not. I don't know. I dig that because it feels realistic in that way.
One of the things that made me happy about starting the show over again, and I know it's only like the first couple seasons and a few episodes here and there, and then the last episode, is the live interaction from the kids. Because it was really nice to see him be like, I'm going to tell you the story of How I Met Your Mother. And they're like, oh, are we being punished? He's like, no. Well, is this going to take a while? Yes. And like... It's just nice seeing the kids interact because for most of the series, when they talk to them, they use stock footage of them just sitting on the couch, and they're just kind of like,
yeah. In those later seasons, they don't even like. I kind of wish they had used like even stock reactions, like where they'd say something, even if I heard that exact thing but like literally, it would just be quick shots of them just sitting there, not saying anything.
I mean,
which was a bummer, but I get why, because you can't have them not age over 9 years of a show when it's supposed to be like maybe an hour or two.
Knowing that they were going to do it the way they did it, I'm surprised they didn't shoot just a bunch of stuff with those two and then use it like you said. Even if you've got to recycle something once in a while, I mean, it's better than not having them do anything at all.
Yeah, just try and come up with any reaction you can. I think that would have been actually pretty funny, but I actually watched, because I have the full DVD set. I watched the commentary for this episode, and they joked about the writers suggesting that they just substitute the kids for puppets in later seasons.
I'd have been okay with that even.
I'm like, dude, I would have watched the hell out of that. That would have been hilarious. Oh, man. All right. So also side note, future Ted voiced none other than Bob Saget. That's right. And I'll be honest, I was a little disappointed that we didn't get to see Bob Saget.
Yeah, I mean,
I get why, but also, why couldn't they have just had it be Josh Radnor? Like, why couldn't he have just voiced it?
Right?
Like, your voice doesn't change that much.
Because we see him as his future self later on. Like timeline past 2030. And he's Josh Radnor still. He's not freaking Danny Tanner.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really, like, when you're already an adult, your voice doesn't change that much.
No.
When you continue to be, like, if you're going from a kid to an adult, that's different.
Yeah.
But, like, he's in his late 20s. He's like 27, I think they say in the pilot episode. And so, like, from 27 to 52, I feel like his voice wouldn't change that much, that they could have just used Josh Radnor in that role. But I mean, it was cool hearing Bob Saget, but
it is. I mean,
it was weird. It was weird in the last episode because then it was Josh Radnor's voice in the final episode, you know, so it was a little weird there. But you know, we'll get there in a few years when we get to that episode. All right. So we first meet Marshall, Ted's best friend, as he is practicing his proposal to his long-term girlfriend, Lily. He asks Ted what he'll be doing that night and responds that he's hanging out with their other friend, Barney. He calls Barney, who's at a barber, getting a shave. And this is where we get our first running gag of the series, really. And it's the Lebanese girls are the new half Asians, which comes back a few times throughout this episode. And we also get our very first suit up. Suit up, man. So, John, what are your thoughts on this scene?
I mean, it's a basic scene. Like, it's very basic scene. It's just a quick, hey, this is character development, and this is... I don't really react to it as an entirety of a scene, because the Lebanese girls is, like you said, it's the start of the gag of Barney trying to, like, accomplish his Mideastern everything. Actually, I think in later seasons, he's still trying to get a Lebanese girl.
Probably. I mean, he's trying to fill out that map at one point, I remember.
But I do know that it's nice to see the suit up. Like,
yeah, this scene to me really showcased the character of Barney, what we were going to see going forward. You know what I mean? Like, this scene is exactly what he is all the way through.
True. He does develop a little bit more by the end of the series, where he's not so stiff about some of the shit.
That's true. Let's see. So we get to the bar. Ted is reflecting on his life, decides he's ready to find the one. This is something that is essentially the crux of this whole series.
Absolutely.
Of Ted looking for the one. He wants to settle down finally, and it takes him forever to get there.
9 years.
Forever to get there from it. But a lot of trials and tribulations. Barney, not a fan of this. We do get a flashback of when Ted first met Barney, and I thought I noticed something in this, and then they talked about it on the commentary as well. In the bar, so you got Ted with the goatee, Barney slides in, there's a booth in front of them, and there's an ashtray with a burning cigarette in it.
Oh, shit.
In 2005, smoking was not legal in bars anymore.
No,
because that happened in mid 2003. I looked at it, which means as I was watching it, I was like, well, that means that this scene is at least 2 years prior, because they don't actually say how long ago it was that they met.
That's true.
So you're kind of left to just kind of figure it out for yourself. But I was listening to the commentary, and apparently it was 4 years ago. So it was 2001.
Oh, wow.
The creators confirmed that in the commentary. So Ted and Barney meet in 2001, which I thought was interesting. And I like the little detail of having that burning cigarette there, because like people would be smoking in bars at that time.
That's
like
true. And that's a very, very small, minute thing, then, unless you're really paying attention to it.
I don't think I've ever noticed it before.
I don't think I just watched it tonight. Like, I literally watched it right before we recorded. I didn't notice it.
Yeah.
However,
go ahead.
That scene, though, does come back at a later point in time, too.
Yeah.
And I love that. And it's like almost, I don't know if they did a shot for shot or if they took that exact part of the scene and just lifted it and moved it. But it's that exact scene is used in the explanation of how Ted lied to Barney that night. Because he's like, I met you at the urinal. And it's where Barney's practicing a pickup on a chick, and Ted's supposed to be his deaf brother, and he lies to the girl, and she gives him a fake number.
Yep. Yeah, that was a great one. I can't wait till we get to that one. All right, so this we also get our very first "Have you met Ted?" In this scene.
Have you met Ted?
Mm-hmm. And we meet a girl named Yasmin. And this is the first callback to that earlier gag where she happens to be Lebanese. She just happens to be Lebanese.
It makes me very shocked that Barney doesn't turn around and try to pick her up under Ted.
I don't think he heard it.
No,
because he does the "Have you met Ted?" and then just he's He is instantly out. He goes somewhere else because we see that later on when he does it with Robin. He's just boom. He's just out off to the side. He just goes. Yeah. If he had heard that, 100%, man, he'd have turned around and be like, sorry, you don't need Ted. you want to talk to Barney.
Me, Ted.
Yeah. We cut to Marshall and Lily. This is actually the first time that we meet Lily in the episode. She's coming home from work. Purple paint handprint on her boob. We find out she's a kindergarten teacher, and it was your handprint. It is finger painting day at school, and yes, sir, I do. Marshall gets nervous about spilling the beans about the proposal and begins acting weird. Then we wind up back at the bar. Ted and Yasmin are sitting together at a table, talking and drinking. He's talking about wedding that he wants, and he gets really embarrassed. Okay, so I'm going to bring this up here in a couple of things because they cut back and forth between this and between Lily and Marshall a bunch of times.
Yes.
And so I'm just going to talk about this part right here. We have Ted, we have Yasmin sitting there. Ted eventually asks Yasmin out, and she says that she's dating Carl.
Yep.
And so my thought process to this was, why did she sit down, have drinks with Ted? He's obviously flirting with her.
Yeah.
And it's like he's not trying to hide it at all.
No.
She says, he talks about, the wedding thing, and then he's all embarrassed. And she says that she thinks it's cute. And he's like, oh, you're just drunk. Get the lady another, the lady needs another or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like he's flirting with her. And she's sitting there, not letting him know that she's dating the bartender Carl. Like, I'm less like, I don't understand the thought process here. Why would she even go and sit down at a table with him?
Well,
she doesn't know the guy.
To quote one of our other favorite little shows that we watch here and there on the internet, Yasmin is never seen again, which means either Carl is a vampire or she probably fucking killed herself.
Dude, we'll probably use that line so many times in the show because it happens a lot.
But I had to throw that because I thought that too. I was like, well, we see Carl a bunch more times. And she's never fucking talked about ever again.
No, never.
Either Carl
dude, Carl's like, you sat down with Ted? We're done. We're done.
Me versus Ted, and you sit down with Ted? I give you free drinks. That's it. Get out.
Yep. So during the commentary, they actually revealed something that I thought was actually kind of cool. Apparently, the showrunner's assistant is named Carl McLaren.
Dude, that is awesome.
Yeah, and so that's where the bartender and the bar's names came from. And I was like, oh, that's really fucking cool.
That is really cool.
I mean, the guy is probably not known for anything else other than being an assistant to people.
Well, then thank you
always have that.
For giving us a name for a podcast.
Thank you, Carl McLaren. We appreciate you. All right, so back at the apartment, we've got Marshall and Lily. They're in the kitchen cooking. Marshall pulls out some champagne. He's afraid to open it. Apparently, he had some issues in the past.
Yeah, I'm really sad that they never dove into that.
Yeah, I would have loved something, even if it was, because they do flashbacks. They had already done a flashback at this point. So it's not like a flashback wouldn't be, uncalled for here. They could have easily done that. I would have loved that.
Easily.
And it's very possible that there was, because, they cut a lot of stuff out.
That's true.
Later on in the commentary, they talked about the scene which we'll get to, but where Ted takes the French horn. Apparently there's a whole little scene of the two waiters kind of like just talking to one another before it happens, and then he comes busting in there. But it had to get cut out for time. So like, there's a lot of stuff apparently that gets cut out of these, so which is sad. I'd love to see those full versions, to be honest with you. Yeah. But Lily tries to get him to open this champagne. And that's when he just blurts out the proposal. He just, right there, boom. He says, will you marry me? And she says yes, and they proceed to have sex on the kitchen floor.
And find a Pop-Tart under the refrigerator.
I literally have that written down too. Marshall calls dibs on a Pop-Tart.
Marshall calls dibs.
And who knows how long that fucking Pop-Tart's been there. But that, I'll be honest, is a perfect kind of encapsulation of the character of Marshall.
And you know what? I thought that myself because, one, that joke comes back around later on.
Yeah.
And two, there's the calzone.
Oh yeah, where he drops the calzone on the sidewalk,
and Barney watches him.
Yep.
And I was like, Marshall just is a guy who, if you've never watched How I Met Your Mother, like, first off, why are you listening to this podcast?
It's true.
Second off, how dare you? And then
also true.
Marshall Erickson is just like this really chilled, down to earth, wants to become a lawyer and save the world, but he doesn't really have social standards. Like, he's not the kind of guy you're going to want to take to like an art exhibit or
oh, we see that.
Yeah, we do see that actually. Now that you
that's dude, that was perfect because yes, he perfectly presents that to us later on. Oh man. So, you know, he's all happy. He just had sex. She said yes. You know, he's on cloud 9 at this point, and he goes to open up the bubble.
You hear that
pop, and that thing just clocks Lily right in the eye.
Now, here's the thing I want to know: does it straight shoot her in the face, or does it ricochet?
That's a good question, because I feel like if it straight shot her in the face, there'd be more damage. Part of me thinks that it ricocheted and just kind of like kind of clipped her eye a little bit, and so they, you know, just to be safe, they rush her off to the hospital. So back at the bar, Ted is disheartened after what I called his non-date, and then he sees a girl across the bar, and he locks eyes with this beautiful girl in a green, I think it's a turtleneck. And we come to find out that is Robin. Barney plays another round of how have you met Ted?
Have you met Ted?
Have you met Ted? Ted and Robin, they begin talking. Ted's real awkward here, but in a real fun way, which I like. This is Ted the way I like him, where he's confident but awkward, and when he's with somebody like Robin who gets that, it plays really well. I thought the two of them.
I don't think anybody ever got it as well as Victoria, though.
That's true, and we don't have to wait long to get to that.
No, we don't.
We don't. Ted even tells Robin that because Robin is here with a group of friends, one of her friends was just recently dumped, and so he tells her that she can throw a drink in his face to make her friend happy.
Which she obliges because it looks fun in the movies.
Yes, she does. He asks her out, and she agrees. So I thought that was cool. And then boom, splash to the face. Apparently, they practiced that several times.
Well, funny though, because you're jumping one small thing that becomes later callback, and I think that's funny. So she throws it, and she does. She walks away, and then Barney instantly comes up, and he's like, denied.
Yeah.
Which later becomes the legendary thing.
Mm.
And I'm like, denied? I'm like, why would you fucking stretch that out that way? That sounded dumb.
Denied.
And I was like, but it is Barney, and it's the show opener.
I think they're feeling their way out with him.
Oh yeah, he's definitely raw stage at this point.
Yeah. Going back to Marshall and Lily, they rush into a cab, and to get to the hospital. I'll be honest, I love this scene. I'd forgotten all about this scene because I feel like every time I watch it, I'm bummed that it's not Ranjit because it's a cab. Yeah, you know what I mean?
It's not him right away.
But the cab driver is pretty damn funny in this scene.
He is.
You know, did you hit her? No. Man, Lily's go ahead. Lily's reaction.
Lily's just like, no, he wouldn't hit me. I can't even get him to spank me in the bedroom. She's all like, oh baby, was that too hard? And the fucking cab driver, she's like, oh, complete stranger. He's like, no, it's fine. flips on the fair, and then he's like, "So these spankings, do they happen in the pajamas or all natural?"
Oh shit!
What? In what sociable part of the world does it become acceptable to ask somebody that?
Oh man, it's funny though. Oh, damn.
I mean, it is. It is.
Yeah. All right. So we cut to the next night. Ted and Robin are on their date. They see a blue French horn on the wall, and Ted refers to it as a Smurf penis, which I love. Okay, so something that I thought was really funny about that. Obviously, it's just a coincidence, but you have How I Met Your Mother. They talk about Smurf penis right in the first episode. Then you have Neil Patrick Harris, who plays Barney, who goes on to star in 2 Smurf movies.
Yeah.
I just thought that was funny.
Well, you know what else I thought was really funny is when he gets home from the date, he's talking. Well, we'll get there. I
mean, yeah, that's just the next thing that I talk about. Ted comes home. Lily has the eye patch, and Marshall asks about about Robin, and then they talk about the olive theory. So you can get into this scene a little bit.
I really like how when he's describing his perfect woman would fit both of our fucking standards as to what both of us look for in a woman we date. The obscure references to Ghostbusters, the Star Wars. I mean, me and you have always played it differently when it comes to that kind of shit. Anytime a woman tells me I love you for the first time, if it's not me saying it, I always pull a Han Solo and I look him dead in the face and go, I know. And it's just fucking hilarious because I always get smacked for it. But then I'm like, no, I love you too. Because it's fucking funny. Who wouldn't do that? But I mean, Ghostbusters is one of my all-time favorite movies. Star Wars. The olive theory is a little stretched sometimes, but I mean, who doesn't like olives?
This guy.
I know, but that's hilarious because it's our olive theory.
It is, man. It works perfectly here.
You are my hetero life mate.
It's true. All right, so
they're looking at him. You gotta come through me.
It's true. So Marshall gets real excited about the olive theory thing, and he starts doing the robot dance. It's real quick. He's just like, "Oh, it is on till the break of dawn," and does a little robot dance. So I was listening, as I said before, I was listening to the commentary, and apparently during this scene, Jason Segel improv'd the robot dance. And Josh Radnor, who plays Ted, did not know he was going to do it. And his reaction, the way he laughs, was a legit reaction. Yeah.
That's awesome.
The best thing that I thought about this, they took the robot dance thing and made it part of Marshall's personality and bring it back in several episodes throughout the show.
Oh, yeah, dude. One, not to mention, later on in the series, he ends up with Dancer's Hip.
It's true. He refers to the robot dance as Old Reliable, I remember at one point. So, an improv just becomes part of this character, and I thought that was awesome. So
that's the best way to make a character, though.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we flash back because he's telling the story. We flash back to Ted walking Robin home after their date. She has to leave because there's a bridge jumper, and she gets the chance to cover it. She's a news reporter, and Ted gets heckled by them for not kissing her.
He missed the signal.
Man. So he calls Barney for his advice. Barney's playing laser tag, and we get
another running gag.
It's true. We get our second suit up here. Again, Ted does not. The suit up throughout this episode is its own running gag, just in this episode, because he keeps trying to do it. And obviously, from comments that he's made before, he's said this to Ted several times. Over the last 4 years of their friendship. Once,
but it was a blazer.
So Ted, not into the suits, apparently. Not into the suits at all. So they get to the bar. He says, meet me at the bar, tells him to suit up. And Barney says that he should have kissed her.
Yep.
And then he kisses Marshall to show that he doesn't need a signal. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, what I liked about this, Especially during this time, something like that where a guy kisses another guy, they tend to make the like gay joke out of it. And they didn't do that here, which I actually loved. Instead, Marshall's reaction to Barney kissing him was all about reassuring Lily that he's not being unfaithful.
Well, I love the way it happens, though, because I love how he's like, I didn't give him the signal. I didn't.
I didn't, I swear. I love that.
As a guy who generally doesn't pick up on signals, I can totally see why Ted would. He was trying to be a good guy. Ted didn't want to be the overzealous, shoot my shot, miss it. Ted's a very caring dude.
Mm-hmm.
And that lingering handshake, for years, that stabbed him. Like, he fucking missed that opportunity.
It's true. He totally did. Well, the handshake is later on.
Handshake is later.
Which he, again, misses at that point, too. But, we'll get there. Okay, so Ted realizes that he should have made a move, and then he sees Robin on the news, decides he needs to go and kiss her right now. And it's like midnight. At least it's not 2 a.m.
2 a.m.? Mm-hmm. I thought that because they make a reference that when he gets there, it's 1 a.m.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, man, he's cutting it close.
He is, man. He's cutting it close. So everybody goes with him. Barney has one condition.
Suit up!
Suit up! And Ted finally suits up, which I loved. Barney mentions his blog here. Which I thought was really interesting because, and I think it was NBC who did this show, put out that blog on the internet. Like it was available. I don't know if it's still out there, but it was available. And the very first entry, because this is on the fandom wiki page, the very first entry of that blog is the events of this night.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's actually really cool. And he does the legend, wait for it, dairy in the blog. I don't know when it was posted, so I'm sure that he had already said it in the show.
Probably.
But like continuity wise, he says it there first, I guess, technically. But I thought that was really cool. And he talks about Lebanese girls and has the ranking. Because how he says they're the new half Asians. So Lebanese girls are number 1, half Asian girls are number 2, and then there's like 3 others, which I don't remember what they are.
I'm gonna have to see if I can find this online.
Yeah, just go to the I'll send you a link, but the fandom wiki page, it's all right on there. So, all right. So they get into a cab, and this is where we, for the first time, meet Ranjit.
Hello.
I love that guy. I'm so glad he stuck around throughout this show.
Yes.
On the way, Ted stops at the restaurant that they were at, that they had their date at, and he just flat out steals the French horn off the wall. Now, I had a thought here. What the fuck would Ted have done if that thing was bolted to the wall?
And I thought that. First off, why wasn't it bolted to the wall? They're asking for something. Like, even if somebody didn't steal it, they're in New York. What if they'd had a small earthquake or something and it fucking fell and hit somebody?
Yeah, anything.
I mean, that's an actual fucking French horn. That could have hurt somebody.
Yeah. And I mean, later on in the series, we see it again.
Yeah,
and
after he returns it. It gets
chained.
And
it's like chained? Why is it chained? Like, what is the chain really going to do? Why not just get, like, some brackets that you can screw into the wall so you can't just...
He goes back a second time and steals it again.
I know he does. Obviously, that means he knew about the chain, first off, because he went there with the bolt cutters. But again, we'll get there when we get there. So they pull up to Robin's apartment. He rings the doorbell. And her dogs just start going off. He had forgotten about that. And he almost leaves, but his friends tell him to stay. He gets invited up.
You're wearing a suit!
Yeah, you're wearing a suit. This is where we get I think it's the final callback to the Lebanese girl bit. Yeah. It's where Barney asks Ranjit if he's ever been with a Lebanese girl. And he has not, because he's from Bangladesh.
Yep. And then
And
Barney asks him if Bangladesh girls are hot, and he goes, well, here's a picture of my wife. And I love Barney's response here.
It's so mean, but it made me laugh every time.
A simple no would have sufficed.
Yeah.
It is not the first time, though, that I have heard Barney diss women of a specific brand or...
Well, I guess technically that would be the first time.
That's true. That would be the first. But you know what my favorite one is? Girls from Buffalo aren't pretty.
It's only funny because we're from that area.
Absolutely. But that is why.
Oh,
I've also lived in Buffalo, so
it's true. Oh man, that's no. Trust me, because every time that scene comes up, I crack up because of that. It's hilarious. So Robin offers Ted a drink, turns on some music. Then we go back down. Barney calls Marshall out on the olive theory, telling him that he saw him eating olives just the other day. That's right. Marshall declares that thinking about spending his life with Lily doesn't scare him at all. So, we get to see more of who Marshall really is as a person. Not just from, we get a little bit of that with the kiss. We see how he jumps to the commitment side, to making sure that Lily knows he's committed to her.
Yeah.
And we see that even deeper here. And I like that because that is Marshall. He is committed to Lily, no matter throughout this whole series, no matter what.
The whole series, man, with everything that goes on, she's the one who constantly second guesses their relationship. She's the one who leaves him for San Francisco. She's the one who constantly well, maybe this isn't working. Marshall constantly is there for her.
Yeah.
He just wants her to be happy.
He does, he's emphatically in love with her, and I don't think anything would ever change that. So, and as we see, it really doesn't. All right, so we go back to the apartment. Ted and Robin are slow dancing, and they're listing things that they like about each other or whatever. And then Ted just blurts out, "I'm in love with you."
I think I love you.
All right. No, he says. Does he say think?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, he does say
I think I'm in love with you.
I think I'm in love with you. I mean, then he just says it again later, literally a minute later. Yeah.
She's like, here, the olives. And he's like, thanks. I love you.
I love
What is wrong with me?
The thing that I love, he decides he's going to leave, right? His friends right then and there, I mean, obviously they don't know, but they just bolt. They're just out.
Yep.
They just leave him hanging. And he comes out. He's like, "Oh fuck!
Yeah,
no one's here."
He's like, well, okay. Well, where's the F train?
Yeah, well, can you tell me how to get to the F train?
Which I understand that it's New York City. Trains have letter representation, but in my personal opinion, I like to think he was taking the F train. Is oh fuck.
Yeah, you know what? I like that.
Fuck me.
Yeah,
I guess we're going to take the train, guys.
Yep. So Ted leaves, but he tells Robin that it sucks that a guy can't tell a girl that he just met that he loves them.
And I agree with that.
Yeah, and he makes a plea for why he would make a good husband. All the things he'd be good at, all that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, and this is where we get the handshake that you were talking about. It's just that lingering handshake, man.
Because he says he's a good kisser and he has great references. And then he extends the hand, and I mean, it's there. You can clearly see Robin wants that. She wants that punishment, that desire. I mean,
she's like, that is a good handshake. Like you can hear it in her voice, man.
I've never shook someone's hand and had them be like this is a good handshake.
Dude, Ted twice tells her that he loves her, and a handshake got her ready to go. You know what I mean? This dude had it going, and nothing, man, didn't close the deal at all. We see they're at the bar. Ah, man.
Ted is a bad closer, and that joke comes back later on, too.
He is such a bad closer. We get a great little shot. It's the back of Ted's head. You got Barney talking. I don't even remember what they're saying, but then all of a sudden, from out of nowhere, Ranjit just comes in out of nowhere.
Yeah. Well, it's when they're at the bar and they're talking about that was the moment, and Barney's like, "There is no sign." But yeah, that was the sign. And Ranjit's like, "That was sign."
Yeah, yeah. So like in the commentary, they talk. You can actually see on Josh Radnor's face, like he's trying to hold a smile back because he's hiding Ranjit's head behind his head, and he knows what's about to happen. So I like after like listening to the commentary when I rewatched it again, I saw that specific part and I was like, oh yeah, you can see his face. He's getting ready to crack right there in that scene, which I thought was great. So Marshall finally pops the champagne with no fear. Found out it was real champagne that they were drinking.
Aww.
It wasn't fake.
Celebrating the first episode, man.
It wasn't fake. None of them knew that it was real until they drank it.
Cool.
Apparently, the actor who played Ranjit didn't drink alcohol. It was like against his religion.
Oh.
Yeah, and I felt a little weird about that. I was like, oh, like I don't know if they didn't know that going in, like when they did it. But if they knew that, if like the showrunners knew that and did it anyways, that's kind of messed up, in my opinion. Like I'm like, come on, like that's not cool. But then we get to Back to Future Ted. He reveals to his kids that this was the story of how he met their Aunt Robin.
And they freak.
And not to worry, it's a long story. So yeah, that was season 1, episode 1, pilot. John, let's get some overall thoughts here from you on this.
I mean, it still holds up over time. Like you said, this came out in 2005. It's 2021. That's 16 years. Like that season opener still to this day holds up to time.
Yeah, I agree.
I still wholeheartedly believe that I'm the Ted Mosby of I'm kind of like Ted Mosby. I'm definitely a Barney Stinson though.
You're a mix of Ted and Barney, definitely.
And you're a mix of Ted and Marshall.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. Something that I wanted to mention as about the episode overall. I'm not sure how long they do this for, but it's blatantly obvious in this first episode. We get the laugh track, like a real blatant laugh track that's like you can't miss it. Then the weird like sitcom music, the transition music that they don't do in future episodes.
No, so it'll be nice to kind of watch and see when it fades.
Yeah. And we also don't get the theme music until the next episode.
Oh, I don't think I realized that.
With like the opening montage and everything. Yeah, we don't get that yet, but it makes sense because it's the pilot. They do that. Happens a lot with.
Well,
shows.
Did you also notice that at least in the pilot episode, they don't spend any time they're not in the booth. They either sit at the table or they're like Ted and Barney are in the corner back by the bathrooms. Yeah. Not once are they in the booth. Like,
yeah, it's weird, but like again, that's pilots for you. Yes. Really, they're kind of feeling it out. But yeah, I really love this episode. I think it's great.
HIMYM is one of my favorite shows. So.
Mm-hmm. And it really set the kind of pace for all these characters going forward. We learn a lot about these 5 characters that continue on into future episodes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right, John, you got any last thoughts about this episode?
I want to talk really quickly about how long it took us to come up with a name for this podcast.
Okay, absolutely.
Like Josh said, you are listening to a podcast that we like to call Last Call at McLaren's. Now, when Josh and I came up with the idea to do a podcast about How I Met Your Mother, we went through name after name after name, and we couldn't come up with shit.
Last Call.
Yep. We were going to do something with the yellow umbrella, the pineapple. We were talking about something like pulling it off, which is a reference to the red boots.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't remember how I came up with it. I think I was just making a joke And I was like, well, I guess we could always just have Last Call at McLaren's.
Yeah.
And it just fucking clicked.
It did.
I want you guys to know, we went through probably a rough week and a half, 50-some fucking working titles.
Dude, it was crazy. It was, and like I had been like thinking about it even before I kind of like brought it up to you that we really needed to come up with a name, and I couldn't.
Something that worked with this show.
Yeah, I was like jotting down like, okay, maybe something about this or something about, you know what I mean, and nothing was clicking, nothing, because like the one, I think it was like the Yellow Umbrella podcast. I think is already a podcast.
It is.
And then there was one, How I Met Your Podcast.
Is
already a podcast. So I was like, okay, those two, like my first two like ideas were already taken, because you know what they say, no idea is a new idea. you know,
is true.
So it's just, it took a long time. It did.
But once we got the name, it was there. And it was just a joke. Like, Josh and I have closed down bars so many times. I can't tell you how many times we've heard Last Call.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just joking. I was like, well, maybe if we caught Last Call at McLaren's, we could come up with something.
Yeah, and you were just, it was just kind of like you weren't being super serious. It was just kind of like off the cuff. And it was perfect. It was perfect, man.
So on behalf of me, at least, thank you for checking out our second podcast that we're now co-hosting together. And welcome to Last Call at McLaren's.
Yes, thank you very much. Be sure to check us out on Twitter at Last Call HIMYM. That's stands for How I Met Your Mother, for those of you who don't know. I hope you do know, though, since you're watching this podcast. Last Call HIMYM on Twitter. Also, Last Call HIMYM on Anchor, if you're listening to it that way. John, where can everybody find you?
Well, you can find me on this Twitter. You can find me at Off the Ropes JJ, because Josh and I also have the Off the Ropes podcast, which is going strong, newly formatted. For the newest episode is up right now. Go listen to it. And you can find me on Twitter. It's simply Sane J1. That's right. That's right here. Because I also have my own podcast, Simply Sane with Jay, this guy.
Yeah. Hell
Josh,
yeah.
What about you? Where can they find you?
You can find me right down here at Movie Blog Merc. That is the Twitter page for my site, Merc with a Movie Blog. You can check me out, mercwithmovieblog.com. Also, hit me up at DC Comics News if you are into that kind of stuff. DCComicsNews.com. I run that site over there. Yes. And like John said, Off the Ropes, JJ, you definitely want to check us out there.
You forgot one. He's also on Twitter at JPRAYNOR. That's right, JP.
I am. I'm not active as much over there, but if you want to check out my personal one. But that is the
one that is my favorite, because you're like, you can find me at JP Rayner. That's RAYNOR.
It's JPRAYNOR. That's right.
I have heard so many times that it's ingrained in my fucking head.
It's true. We have definitely done a lot of episodes of podcasts together. So yeah. Again, at Last Call HIMYM. Be sure to check us out there. This has been episode number 1 of Last Call at McLaren's.
I'm going to tell you this. You don't have to go home, but you can't listen here.
Catch you next time.